So hi, everybody. Welcome. You're here. I'm thrilled. Thank you again for coming out in this weather for my presentation. I really appreciate you guys showing up, and I hope that it's worth your while. I hope that you can learn some stuff that you can take home and apply to your relationships with your dogs. My name is Robyn Shepherd, and I have been working with dogs and their people in Missoula for about 10 years now. Prior to moving to Montana, I lived in Southern California and was on behavior staff at the Humane Society in Escondido, California. And I've been addicted to being with dogs since I was a little kid, and I have two right now that are special in their own way, just like each one of them is. And I think about this stuff. I keep on learning, and I keep on processing, and I keep trying to come up with better ways to sort of help people understand dogs and dogs understand people. And so that's sort of what I'm here for today, is hopefully to teach you a different way to see your dog and your dog's behavior. So with no further ado, let's see, what else was I gonna say? Okay, so I'm gonna talk about my experience, because that's what I know best. And in my experience, a lot of dog behavior problems are caused by misunderstandings and miscommunications and misinformation. We are gonna talk about 3 different approaches to relationship with dogs and sort of what works and what doesn't and why. I do wanna focus on what to do, but it can be very helpful to look at examples of what not to do, what's not working. So we are gonna do that. And if you have been using some of these less effective strategies, give yourself a break, because it's everyone. That's why I'm doing this. Misinformation abounds. And for whatever reason, when somebody goes on Facebook and says, I have a problem with my health, everybody's like, oh, essential oils or blah, blah, or maybe go see your doctor, I don't know. But when somebody puts a question on Facebook about what do I do with my dog, nobody ever calls me. Everybody has their own ideas, right? And I'm not sure like I said, it's everyone, it's everywhere. Like if I see one more person say, well, just give them no in a firm voice, I'm like, that's your advice, really? Okay, well, just tell them no and let me know how that works for you. So yeah, we're here to talk about what's not working and the fact that everyone does it anyway because they don't know what else to do. So we're going to talk about some different ideas. Oh yes, because, and this is one of my favorite sayings, when we know better, we do better. So it's all about getting information from a reliable source and learning how to put it into practice in an effective way. Switch the slide, please. So the first approach we're going to talk about today is the leader of the pack, the alpha dog dominance model. Who's familiar with this? Okay, great. And this is a lot of misinformation circulating about this. Actually, I'm going to pause for a second, and we're going to do our whiteboard thing now that you're back. I was waiting on you, and I just got going. So what we're going to do is just go ahead and raise your hand if you, well, let's see. Who has dogs? Does everybody have dogs? Okay. Who has 2 dogs? Okay. Who has 3 or more? Okay. So you get a refrigerator magnet for the most dogs. Okay. And who is currently working through some kind of a behavior problem with 1 or more of their dogs? Okay. Well, since we have such a nice intimate gathering today, I think that we can probably really quickly kind of go through what each of you is dealing with. I only want to devote about 10-15 minutes to this, so the answers I'm looking for are just, 2-3 word answers. Not a big long story, but who wants to go first? Who wants to be the guinea pig? Yes, excellent. So what is your name?
Carol.
Okay. And what is your dog's name, Carol?
One of them is Lady.
Okay. And what kind of issue are you seeing with Lady?
She's a German Shepherd and she doesn't know her own strength.
Okay.
So she's constantly jumping,
okay,
like on us, or like jumping on our bed, walking on us.
Okay.
Or like putting her paws like on our other dog. And he's smaller, so that's a lot of weight.
Yes. Okay.
And, basically, and she'll go outside and she'll hide when she knows she's supposed to come in, but she'll go and hide like in the lilac bushes where you can't hardly get her out.
Okay, why do you think that she's doing these things?
Yeah, I had something real
Yes,
quick.
please.
Where'd you get
And
them?
your name?
Daniel.
Daniel.
I found her in Yakima out in the desert. She
Okay.
was abandoned, she was a bag of bones.
Uh-huh.
I was out there on a business trip, driving, and another guy was gonna take her and didn't. I decided to take her with me in the sleeper in the truck and bring her back for a whole week. I had her in there, she would not leave the sleeper. I had to drag her out literally, fighting all the way. So she has serious abandonment issues. So sometimes when she thinks like she's doing wrong, she goes hides in the bushes. And
Okay.
She feels like she did wrong, and I know that, I don't know what she went through prior to when we received her. The vet says she's anywhere from a year to 18 months, they're not sure.
Okay,
But she's
so,
very lovable, that's one thing I'll give her, she loves to be
okay.
loved.
So basically, your understanding of her problems is that they're generally caused by abandonment issues? Okay. Okay.
I mean,
And
we can't hardly leave her, she's
Sure.
taking the drywall off of
Sure.
our walls.
Yeah.
And the molding off the side of the door.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah, we call that separation anxiety, and you can go ahead and put that on the board if you want. The behaviors that come with that are called separation anxiety. And we can certainly look at some different treatment options for that kind of a behavior. It's really, really common. And interestingly, there may be many causes in their history or their genetics or whatever for dog behavior, but ultimately the solutions to these problems are very similar because it really has to do with sort of this overarching way that we understand our dogs and their behavior and how we respond to it emotionally. So speaking of which, go ahead and give me one or two feeling words. How do you feel when she's doing that behavior?
well, when she's jumping, I feel, when she's jumping up on me, I feel overwhelmed. I mean,
Okay.
she weighs a lot, she's like 75
Sure.
pounds.
Sure.
And, you know, she can knock somebody over.
Okay. And so do you have an emotion word that you want to share with us as well, Daniel?
I will give her credit from the time we've had, how long have we had her now? 8 weeks?
No, we've had her since October, that's like 4 months.
From then till now, she's got way better of not causing havoc in the house.
Yep.
Where we would walk in and it looked like a tornado hit it, and we knew it wasn't the other one. And it was obvious her, that she had, I mean, we put her in a dog crate, and she bit her
She
way
won't
out
go.
of it.
Yeah, she's like Houdini.
Sure.
I mean, Lady Houdini.
Yeah. Dogs with separation anxiety don't generally do too well with being confined in a small space without a lot of preparation. Well, that's good.
She's finally settled, and then our son's there half the day before he goes to work, so
Good.
she loves to be held, but,
Good.
you know, I hate leaving her, but you can't
Sure.
babysit her 24/7.
Okay, so maybe what feeling is that?
Frustration when
Okay.
she destroys the sheetrock, it's like, are you serious?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's spot on. Some of this stuff is very frustrating. And I think it's important to talk about it, about how it makes us feel, because our reaction to their behavior is based in the emotion that we're experiencing. And sometimes those emotions are based in a misunderstanding. So that's why we're looking at this stuff. Okay, and so far, just briefly, what, if any, strategies have you tried? You tried the crate,
That didn't work.
and that didn't work. Okay, what else have you tried? Okay, don't leave her. Okay.
Like, we'll say, oh no, she's been home like 2 hours, so it's like you open up the door and she's like, what are we gonna, what's gonna be before us? You know, one time my son called and he says, Mom, you need to come home now. And I just thought, oh my gosh, she's taken everything, she'll take the insulation. I mean, it's all the way down to like, there's metal between the studs or something, you know? And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, did she break all the way through? And I have the siding's gone too. And he's like, come home.
I had a separation anxiety dog that I accidentally closed in my bedroom when there was a thunderstorm. And she was only in there for 5 minutes maybe. And when I got in there, she had destroyed the sheetrock right by the door all the way up to the light switch and exposed all the wiring. So, yeah. Yes. But the good news is that these kind of problems, like I said, are very common, and they're actually not that difficult to solve. It's time consuming and detail oriented, but it's not really that hard. So we will talk about it. Okay, anybody else want to share? Anybody else dealing with a behavior problem? Sure, what's your name? Courtney. Hi, Courtney. And what's your dog's name? Wally. And just real briefly, what kind of behavior problems are you challenged with right now?
He has stopped coming back when he's
Okay.
he'll stay near me. But he
Okay.
won't come to me.
Okay.
Like last Saturday I spent
So poor recall.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a significant issue for sure. Yeah, that's kind of the bottom line. That's the very least that we expect is that they come when we call them. Yeah. Okay. And why do you think he isn't coming when you call him?
I don't know where it came from. He did it when he's 2.5. He did it when he was younger, I felt like we were over it.
What do you think his reason is? What do you think he's thinking? Why is he not coming instead of coming?
I don't know. He's staying near me,
Okay.
but he won't come to me.
Okay, so it's a mystery. You can just put a question mark. Perfect. Okay, and so just real briefly, maybe give me a couple of feeling words about how you feel when you call him and he doesn't come.
Totally exasperated.
Exasperated is a great one. Yes. Yes, indeed. And so far, what strategies have you tried to correct the problem?
I did have a trainer come in. I haven't let him off leash in 2 months. And
Okay.
I tried a few times and he was okay the first 2 times, and then the third time was last Saturday and it was 3 hours and he never came back. Like, a friend of mine took him home with him and called me and I picked him up.
Okay, all right, so yeah. Okay, so this is a significant issue. Okay. Perfect. Yep. Yeah. Prevention. Staying on a leash. Okay. I think we have time to do one more. Did you guys want to talk about your one pup that's got issues? So this is Patty. How do we spell Patty?
P-A-T-T-Y.
Okay. And what's the pup's name?
Eleanor.
Eleanor. I like people names for dogs. That's fun. And what kind of behavior challenge do you have with her?
Well, she likes to eat everything.
Okay. So destroy though,
Destroy.
not just eat things, but destroy, dissect.
Yes.
Yes. Furniture.
Furniture.
Shoes, clothing,
Everything.
personal items, carpet.
Carpet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So destruction and dissection. All right. And why on earth do you think she does that?
I don't know.
Okay.
No, she doesn't do it in front of us.
Okay, sure.
She does it.
Sure.
I think some of it's the exercise issue.
Okay, you don't think she's getting enough
She doesn't get
exercise?
enough exercise.
Okay. So you think she's just a little pent up?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. And so how do you guys feel when she destroys your stuff?
The fact that she's not a rug yet is pretty impressive.
Okay, so feelings maybe of anger? Anger's okay. We can be angry at our dogs. It's fine. We all live together in a family, and family members get mad at each other. Again, because often of misunderstandings and miscommunication. Okay, and what have you tried so far to solve the problem?
Well, nothing really.
Okay,
Don't know what to do.
okay. You know what? I love people who know how to say, I don't know. Because that means that you are open to learning and not, grasping onto misinformation, but just are here with an open mind. And I'm really, really happy about that. That's awesome. And hopefully we can give you some constructive ideas to work on that. Okay, so now we have some specific behavior problems that we're dealing with, and I'll just refer to them possibly as I go through here. But when we get done with all of the material, then I want to go back through and I want to get ideas from you about what we talked about in the presentation, see if that gives you some different ideas about why they're doing it, different feelings about when they do it, and some different ideas about strategies that you can try. Okay, so thank you so much for audience participation. You already got your refrigerator magnet. Let's give one to Carol. Yes. And let's give one to Courtney. There you go. Refrigerator magnets for everyone. Okay. So here we are, Alpha Dog Dominance Model. So we've all heard of it. Yeah, does anybody want to shout out some of the things that people tell you if they think that this is the right way to deal with your dog? Go ahead, shout it out.
Well, some of them like getting your dog on the ground.
Right, that's called,
biting
yes.
them, that kind of
Yes, getting your dog on the ground, biting them if they bite. Yes, the putting them on the ground thing is called an alpha roll. And just as an aside, actually, the monks of New Skete about 20 some years ago wrote a book called How to Be Your Dog's Best Friend. And one of the authors did put that forth as an idea. And it's been thoroughly debunked, and that particular co-author has publicly retracted that idea. Because, okay, so this kind of thing is based in sort of what not to do rather than what to do, right? Because when our dog does something that we don't like, with this way of thinking, the assumption is that they're trying to dominate us, right? They're trying to be the alpha, right? And that is a misinterpretation. First of all, dominance, there's no such thing as a dominant dog. Dominance describes the relationship between two dogs. So this dog may be dominant over this dog, but with another dog they would be submissive. And the reasons why this isn't super useful for us, reason number one, they know we're not dogs. They know that we're family and that we live together, but they know that we're not dogs, and when we try to do dog-like behaviors towards them, I can't even imagine what they think, you know? I mean, dog laughter, right? And the other thing is, right, when people are spouting this alpha dog business is that you have to let them know who's boss. They have to know their place. They already know who's boss. Because we walk upright, we have big brains, we have opposable thumbs, we control the doors and the food and the toys and rides in the car and fetch and so on. They know that we're the boss. And they are not in this idea has come from study of wild canids, wolves in the wild. All of this pack theory stuff, but in the wild, it's not just an assortment of wolves that glom together, it's a family. There's a mom and a dad and some kids and some aunts and uncles and some cousins. And everybody knows their place, and there isn't this jockeying for position within the pack. You know, the pack is a unit, the pack is a team, and there's very little intra-pack conflict. So what did we talk about? And the real problem, of course, with this is that people who subscribe to this way of thinking, it encourages people to bully their dog. It encourages people to bully their dogs. And it's based in sort of this fear that they won't be able to control the dog or handle it, right, unless, you know, they stay on top of it and don't let it try to dominate them and make sure it knows who's boss. Hi, welcome. Come on in. And again, it's an interpretation of undesirable behavior as an attempt to dominate, right? And so there's a sort of defensiveness and there's an emotional response that goes with that. No, you're not going to dominate me, right? But again, that's not their intention. That's not what they're trying to do. It's a misinterpretation created by humans because it makes sense with our sort of patriarchal society, right, and hierarchical, the meritocracy. These are all ideas that we go, oh, that must be right. You know, but dogs are a completely different species, and you know the problems are. Let's see, we covered this, we covered that. Oh yes, so they know we're the boss. They know we're not dogs. Also, in the wild, a subordinate dog would offer an appeasement behavior, like rolling over and showing the belly, or lip licking, or like muzzle licking. They offer those behaviors to the alpha dog. It's not that the alpha dog forces them to behave that way. And so when people are trying to use this theory and they're forcing their dogs into certain positions, this has no bearing whatsoever on natural behavior. And the real problem, of course, is that this kind of thinking and the behavior that comes from it can exacerbate aggression if it's already present and create it if it's not there. And it destroys trust. And we're going to talk about trust a lot because in my mind, the most important thing in a dog-human relationship is trust and then communication. And if you have trust and you have two-way communication, you're halfway there. That's the really important stuff. And so any idea or method that potentially damages trust or communication, I question, because it doesn't seem to me that that's going to get us where we want to go. And also, dogs are social learners, and in a pack they will mirror each other's behavior, and they will do some of that mirroring with us as well, and we'll talk about that too. But when you use alpha dog theory, one of two things is going to happen. Your dog is either going to mirror that aggression back to you, right, which then escalates and leads to punishment and so on, or they're going to shut down. They're just going to become afraid and confused and shut down, and they can't learn. And so there are a couple of ideas about pack theory that can be useful to us in understanding our dogs. We are on the same team as our dog, and people forget that. There's a lot of conflict, again, based in misunderstanding and miscommunication, and it's easy for us to forget that we're on the same team, right? And so I always want to remind people of that. You and your dog are not on opposite sides of this thing. We're working together, right? We can use this theory because we do know that they mirror each other's emotional states. We can then model for them a calm, controlled emotional state, and often they will mirror that back to us. And so it's a really easy, useful idea. Dogs have a primal need to share space and food with their pack. And we get frustrated when they always want to be with us or near us. And we get frustrated when they ask us for our food. But those are very primal needs that they have. And so, you know, it's important to sort of do our best to realize where they're coming from. And, you know, no, we don't want them like glued to us. I have a small dog that my boyfriend affectionately calls the barnacle because she's just a little bit clingy. And sometimes it gets frustrating, but the reality is that she feels safe and comfortable when she's very close to me because I'm her primary, you know, relationship, and I am her pack, along with her brother, who she doesn't really care much for. And so I just have to take that deep breath and go, okay, she just wants to be close to me because I've established and created this relationship and she's doing what she thinks she should. And same thing with sharing food, right? I always try to remind people that it wasn't very long ago that there was no such thing as dog food and people food. There was just food, right? And while you certainly don't want to give your dog a lot of people food or a lot of fat or anything very salty or spicy, it is nice to do it in sort of a symbolic way. And so dogs that beg get ignored. And my dogs now know that if I'm eating food, no matter whether they come and get in my face or they go away and lie down quietly, when I'm done, I'm gonna give them something. You know, if they're like up in my face, they get nothing, and they know this. And so they know they don't need to beg because they know that when I'm done, I will save them each a bite and I will go find them and give it to them because I love them and I want them to feel happy and included. You know, and it's a useful strategy. It helps dogs feel safe and comfortable, and it keeps them from begging when they learn that, you know, they don't have to do any of that, that I recognize them as my pack and I'm going to share my food with them because that's what you do. In my opinion, it's very, very important for dogs to feel safe and comfortable before any kind of learning can take place, communication, building of a relationship. I also believe strongly that all family members and every living thing deserves to be treated with kindness and respect. And I see sometimes parents teaching their children to be kind and respectful to other people, but then the whole family sort of excludes the dog from that. And the dog is, no, you have to be put in your place, and it's more important that we control you and intimidate you, you know, than it is for you to feel safe and comfortable and a part of, and that's not what we want. And I think kids need to learn as well that every living thing deserves to be treated with kindness and respect. So basically, dogs don't need an alpha dog, okay? They need their human family to be present with them and have a relationship with them that's not based in outside ideas, but is just based in, you know, who we are and who they are and how we can work together and live together peacefully and happily and productively. Can you switch the slide for me? Okay, so the next approach we're gonna talk about is Mother Knows Best, the parent-child model. And I see lots and lots of this. And at first glance, it seems like a perfectly good idea, right? Because we love our kids and we protect our kids. And so the problem comes when we don't think specifically enough about the comparison that we're making. And again, a lot of this stuff is unconscious. A lot of people are not consciously thinking about these things. They're behaving in ways that they have sort of assimilated from pop culture and misinformation and so on and so forth, and they're not consciously doing this. It's just, you know, it's the default. You know? And so, of course, we all call our dog, well, maybe not all of us, I call my dogs fur babies and fur kids, and that's fine. And, you know, it is a, you know, big person, small person kind of a relationship. You can see where the comparison is. So the problems that we run into are that, for example, a lot of people like to use the word discipline when what they really want to say is punishment. And discipline and punishment are not the same thing. And I will leave it at that so that when, you know, we want to think about these ideas and these words that we're using, because discipline is not punishment. Discipline can be lots of things. Discipline can be like being on a schedule, knowing what to expect and what's expected, all of that, but it's not punishment. And punishment is not really a useful tool in training dogs because it damages trust and communication. So we'll talk about that. People who subscribe to this sort of approach will often describe their dogs as bad or naughty or rude or stubborn or, vengeful or whatever. They ascribe all kinds of sort of expectations and intentions to their dog that just aren't real. This is another idea that's focused on don't instead of do. It's focused on punishment and correction. Everything's fine until the dog does something undesirable, and then the human springs into action to correct them. So we talked, one of the biggest problems with this is that people often unconsciously, mistakenly assume that dogs know and understand things that they don't, and sometimes that they can't. So how smart is a dog really? Sometimes their intelligence gets used against them. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, oh, he knows, he's smart, as a justification for sort of punishment. And the reality is that your average adult dog, regardless of breed or size, is cognitively going to be at adulthood comparable to a preschooler. If you've got a border collie, maybe comparable to a kindergartner. But without this very, very important thing, which is language. And human brains are wired for language. We begin learning language in utero. When the baby is born, instantly we begin teaching them our language, right? So they have that advantage, plus their brains are wired for it. And dogs don't have that, and they can't. And so we are humans, and we like to talk and use a lot of words and believe in our hearts that somehow our dog knows what we mean, and they don't. We can carefully associate a word as a cue for a behavior, but that's not the same thing as comprehending language and being able to use language. Also, dogs are highly, highly sensitive. Their sense of hearing, their sense of smell, much, much more acute than ours. And one of the things that means is that they may be perceiving distractions in the environment that we're completely unaware of. And they may be behaving in reaction to those distractions that we're not even aware of. So they have this very high level of sensitivity, and that's important to remember, and they don't have language. So I said I want you to see your dog differently, and here's what I want you to see. When you look at your dog, I want you to see a highly sensitive, nonverbal preschooler. And so however you would teach or discipline or interact with a highly sensitive, nonverbal preschooler, that's the headspace that you want to be in when you're dealing with your dog. Those are the type of expectations that you should have. And if your dog is not an adult dog, then they're babies. Cognitively, linguistic, they're babies. And, we don't punish babies. So it's important that we see our dog for, the type of intelligence that they do possess, which is, very, very good for dogs. Dogs evolved for some specific purposes, and humans evolved in our way for some specific purposes, and it's just different. It's a different kind of intelligence. And so we shouldn't assume that their intelligence is like ours and then punish them based on that idea. Let's see. Yes, if we're not mindful, we do treat our dogs as if they know better, if they're being willfully disobedient and stubborn and etc. And often it's not the behavior itself that's punished, it's the disobedience. People become irate when their dogs disobey them because people believe that dogs know they are supposed to obey, which that's very complicated and lots of reasons why that's wrong. They don't understand the concept, They don't understand the concept of obedience. They understand that we're a pack, we're together, we're on the same team, and this is what we're doing together now. That's what they understand. They don't understand that you're telling me to do something and I'd better go do it. So here's one of the most important issues with this approach. When we raise children, we do punish them, don't we? And we make sure that they experience consequences, right? And tough love, right? We use tough love with our kids because sometimes that's what they need. And the reason we do all of those things when we're raising children is because the end goal of that process is an adult human being that is responsible and productive in human society. And we tell our children, I won't always be there to look after you. Well, the good news is, and they tell you, you know, your kid needs a parent, not a friend. You can't be your kid's friend. Here's the good news. Your dog will never, ever cognitively surpass that of a highly sensitive, nonverbal preschooler, no matter how large in size or age in years. They're always going to be there at that level. They'll learn from experience just like we do, but their ability to process cognitively stays at that preschool level forever. And they're never going to have to get into a good school or learn to balance their checkbook or do their own laundry, because we will always be there to take care of them. So that means that we don't have to worry so much about trying to teach them these intangibles that they can't understand anyways, like manners and good behavior and bad behavior and right and wrong. These are abstract concepts, and without language, which is itself an abstract concept, you can't perceive it, you can't comprehend it. So dogs don't have a clue about all these sort of frameworks of ideas that we place on them. So they're never going to leave home, and we'll always be there to take care of them, and so we can adjust our expectations accordingly and realize that, you know, they're never going to leave home. They're always going to be little babies, and it's always fine to treat them that way. And in my opinion, you cannot spoil a dog with too much love or affection or sharing of food or play or letting them have what they want. It's fine. We love them. We want them to be happy. They behave better when they're happy. And so please don't ever worry about spoiling your dog by loving it too much or giving it too much attention or affection, because you really can't. You cannot spoil them. All that will happen is that they will feel more secure and more comfortable and more understood and more able to communicate both ways and give us what we're asking. So we're trying to get everybody's needs met here, not just the person, but the dog too. And an important part of that is for them to feel as though they're understood. All right, where's my gentle teacher? Okay, you want to change the slide for me? Great. Where are we at? So what should we do instead? I propose the gentle teacher method. A for effort. So rather than assuming that our dog knows anything, if we have not taught it to them carefully, bit by bit, and let them know consistently when they're getting it right, then we shouldn't expect them to know. So what does a gentle teacher do? Well, a gentle teacher is focused on do instead of don't, and prevention over punishment. This is a proactive idea, whereas alpha dog and parent are both reactive to behavior that we don't like. And this is a mindset that's about choice instead of force. I don't like to force dogs to do things that they don't want to do or go places that they don't want to do. I would much rather help them want to do it, if that makes any kind of sense. There's a huge difference between putting a dog in a crate and closing the door and taking the time to leave that door open and let the dog experience the crate from inside and out, never trap them in it, associate it with delicious food, and make it so that they want to go there and they want to be there. Because their emotional state is really important in what we're asking of them. And I think this is interesting. I just learned about this idea the other day. Trust equals consistency over time, which I think is something that we can absolutely apply, especially those of us with rescue dogs who, you know, they've got some history and they maybe don't trust us right off the bat, right? And the way that we earn that trust is by being consistent over time, by letting them know what to expect and what is expected of them, by letting them know when they're getting it right, and by being predictable and reliable and not scary and unpredictable. A gentle teacher is invested in their dog's success and in their dog's feelings of safety, comfort, and confidence. Because you can't learn if you're stressed, and neither can a dog. A gentle teacher is kind and respectful and mindful of the dog's emotions and the dog's individuality, because every dog is different. Even dogs of the same breed, the same age, even the same litter. Every dog is an individual, just like every person. So if we treat all dogs the same, it's essentially being, you know, biased or prejudiced, because they're all different. A gentle teacher learns their language, which isn't language, of course, as we understand it, but they do communicate with each other, and they try to communicate with us. And the vast majority of people are completely unaware that they're trying to communicate, or even if they know that the dog's trying to communicate, they have no clue what the dog's trying to say. A gentle teacher learns the signs of stress, okay, because we do not want our dog to be stressed. Even when we're mad at our dog, we need to take like 5 steps back and take some deep breaths, because the last thing we want is to stress a dog, especially a dog that's already having behavior problems. You know, if you've already got aggression or separation anxiety or something like that, and then the dog is stressed on top of that, you know, nobody is going to have a peaceful existence. Those problems need to be solved. Another important thing that a gentle teacher does is uses management to prevent undesirable behavior. So that's putting the trash where the dog can't get to it, instead of telling them, no, bad dog, stay out of the trash. Put the trash away. You know, anything the dog's not supposed to have, put it where they can't get it. You know, put it up high where they can't get it. They don't have thumbs, they don't stand upright. You know, it's pretty easy to help them stay out of trouble by using management. Another management tool I'm a big fan of is the baby gate. Especially like for door rushers, I always teach people in the beginning of the process, use a baby gate, put the dog behind the gate, and ignore them. If the door rings and the person comes in and you're greeting and the dog is jumping up and down and barking, you ignore them completely. Because what do they want? They want to greet the visitor, right? And so I wait until they're calm, and then I allow them to greet the visitor. But I've used management to control them and keep them a distance away so that they can't do the jumping up and the pawing and clawing and barking and crazy, right? Because when that stuff's going on, you're not going to control it, right? By saying, no, get down, right? It doesn't work. We all try it, but it doesn't work. So instead we use management. You know, we have to be just a little bit smarter than the dog. Tethers are also a really good management tool. People don't think about this, but I encourage people to let their dog drag a leash in the house if they're having trouble with a dog that's jumping up or, you know, getting into trouble. It's nice to have a handle on them. And then also, like with door rushing, if you don't have a convenient spot where you can baby gate them, you can tether them indoors. You can put your leash on a really heavy piece of furniture and clip it on, and then they can't go anywhere. And you don't have to let them go anywhere until they're calm and quiet. And you didn't have to yell at them, you didn't have to punish them, and you just wait, and eventually they will calm down, because they can't stay in that aroused state forever. It's not sustainable. Let's see. So management important, yes. And another important thing, and again, because we're dealing with a highly sensitive, nonverbal preschooler, as a gentle teacher, it is not only our job to teach them behaviors, our job to teach them to learn and teach them to love to learn. We want them to be voluntary participants in this process. We want them to be excited about learning, about training. And so first we teach them by making it so easy and so fun that they absolutely want to participate and they absolutely can't get it wrong. And so once we move into actual skills, a very important thing to do as a gentle teacher is to break those skills down into tiny pieces and teach them one at a time. And again, you make it so easy and so fun that they want to be there and they can't get it wrong. Because dogs don't need to make mistakes to learn. If you coach them into doing the correct behavior and reinforce it, they never have to do the wrong behavior. They can have repetition after repetition of getting it right and getting reinforced for it, and there doesn't ever have to be a mistake or a punishment. And another important thing, again, about being proactive in this way is that what we're doing is we're deciding what behavior we want from our dog in a given situation in response to a given stimuli. So a lot of people say, well, I'm out in public and my dog does this, what do I do? And the answer is, you don't go out in public if you don't know for sure that your dog is prepared for that situation. You run simulations in a controlled environment. You become aware of potential distractions, you break those skills down, you work on getting their attention, and you teach them carefully what it is that you want in response to a certain stimulus in a certain environment. So it's about teaching and practicing. And this is what's missing from a lot of people's relationships with their dogs. Again, unconsciously, it's easy to believe that dogs know how to exist in human society, that they should know better than to pull on a leash or get into the trash or you know, different things like that. But you know, the reality is that they don't know. They don't know. And the reason I'm so sure about this is that I know for a fact that dogs always want to get it right. They want to get it right. They have no reason to want to get it wrong. They are desperate for more information from us. about what it is that we want and when they're getting it right. Because then what? They know what to expect and what is expected of them. And that's how you have a well-adjusted dog or a well-adjusted child. My grandpa used to say, all the P's, prior planning and preparation prevents piss poor performance. Burned into my brain, I'll never forget it. My grandpa used to say it all the time. And it's true. It's absolutely true. You don't just roll the dice and take your dog out into the world and see what happens. You decide what kind of behavior you want, you teach it carefully bit by bit, you let them know when they're getting it right, and you give them lots of opportunities to practice. Teaching and practice. A gentle teacher does not give commands. A gentle teacher asks for a behavior. And a gentle teacher is aware that the dog cannot always give us the behavior that we're asking for because there may be a distraction in the environment that we're not aware of, and we need to become aware of that. Because they may be in an emotional state that precludes them from learning or giving us their attention and focus. And it's not our job to correct them or punish them. Our job is to fix the situation so that they can understand what we're asking, have a good reason to do it, and be reinforced for that behavior, if that makes sense. For example, I don't like it when my dog stares at me while I'm eating. We talked about this a little bit. I don't think anybody does. But, all right, I'm going to out you, babe. Sorry. So we've been together for 4 years. That's my other lovely assistant, Darren, back there. Everybody say hi, Darren. And Darren knows a lot of dog stuff. I've taught him a lot of dog stuff, and he's really great with my dogs and has learned a lot about dogs in general. And yet, there we were the other night in the living room eating dinner, and the little dog is sitting at his feet staring while he's eating his food. And of course it's irritating. I'm not sure why it's so irritating, but it is, right? And so he starts telling her different things, I forget, what kind of stuff were he saying? No, go away. I don't want you right now. I'll give you some later. And lots of things that dogs don't understand. And he was trying to change her behavior and make her do something different. And my suggestion was, rather than getting her to stop staring, put her somewhere where you can't see her staring. All you have to do is get her attention, and my dog's all hand target. I can put them wherever I want them. And so, I said, just target her to the side of the chair and let her sit back down, and she can stare at you all day, and you can't see her, so it's fine. So there didn't have to be scolding or punishment or coercion or any of that. I asked her to do something she already knew how to do, which is go where I tell her to go, and it was fine. And she waited, and when he was done eating, she got her little nibble and happy. But these kinds of things escalate into conflict if we're not really cognizant of how to deal with them in a peaceful way, if that makes sense. So that is it for the gentle teacher. Can you change the slide for me? Okay. Now, I'm sure some of you are saying that is not a dog, Robyn. And you would be correct. That is not a dog. That is a killer whale. And in this picture, of course, the trainer is offering the killer whale a nice big juicy fish, presumably because the killer whale performed a behavior that they were asked to, and that's their reinforcer. And so it seems to me, at least in this country, a lot of people, either consciously or unconsciously, believe that using food to train is cheating or bribery. And in short, it's not. And the reason I'm so confident in that assertion is that people who train killer whales, dolphins, seals, tigers, lions, bears, they use food to train. They use food to train because it works. And it's not cheating and it's not bribery. It works. I'm not going to get into all of the behavioral science, but suffice it to say that those food reinforcers are very powerful at creating connections in the animal's brain about what, if I do this, what will happen? If I do this, something good is going to happen. If I do this, something delicious is going to happen. And I know that because it happened many, many times, and it continues to happen. And that's an important point. When I talk with people about using food to train their dog, one of the concerns is, but then I'll always have to have treats with me to get them to obey me, right? And that's not true, because when we use treats, we show them to the dog briefly while we're teaching the skill. But once they've learned the skill, they don't see the food until after they've done the behavior, and then we produce it. So we're not bribing and we're not luring. We're just counting on the rehearsal and practice that we've done and for them to know what to expect and to get that food reinforcer. And anyways, there's nothing wrong with carrying treats with you. If you're carrying treats with you, you're prepared to teach. You're prepared to capture behavior that you want to reinforce even if you didn't ask for it. For example, I take care of other people's dogs in the middle of the day. I go around and scoop them up from their houses and take them to the park to run and things like that. It's ridiculous that I get paid for it because it's the most fun thing in the world ever. And I do carry treats with me all the time because these are other people's dogs and I have to have a relationship with them that's, I've trained them to respond to me. And, they have lots of opportunities for reinforcement. I never have to worry about those dogs disappearing and not coming back because I have them all trained to check in. They come find me and they sit and I say, are you ready to check in? And they get their little cookie and then they go off and play. And so they voluntarily come back to me many, many times to check in, pay attention, and get paid, and then off they go. So that when it's time to go and I ask them to come with me, they're thrilled because 99% of the time when they come back to me, they still get to stay and play. And so when I call them to come to me so we can go load up, when they come to me, they still get that food reinforcer. When they get in the van, they get another food reinforcer. When I take them to their home and they get up on their porch, they get another one because that's what I want them to do reliably. Come to me, load up in the car, go up on your porch, go in your house. And when we get in the house, I throw them like 4 or 5 treats, let them fly so that they can go find them. Gives them something to do. And it's not cheating and it's not bribing, and I handle other people's dogs every day and they obey me beautifully because I have that history with them. One more example of why I'm glad that I carried treats with me. I had my little crew out and we were getting ready to go load and we were headed towards the street and this deer comes booking it down the street, and I've got this young dog, Seamus, that was about to light out after it, got a few steps, and I gave him his recall like I always do. I said, come on, Seamus! And he flipped it and ran back to me as fast as he could, and I gave him like 5 treats. Because that's a huge distraction, and he was able, because of our reinforcement history, to make a decision that I was a better bet than the deer. And so he chose me. And it paid off handsomely for him. And frankly, I was thrilled and surprised because, we hadn't practiced with a wild animal, as a distraction. But, the strategies that I've had in place and the reinforcers and the rehearsals paid off big time that day, which is an important point. When you use treats, yes, you are paying them for their work, rewarding their behavior, reinforcing it, whatever you want to call it. But you are also making an investment in future behavior. Because if they have a good reinforcement history of repetition and they know what to do and what to expect, and something similar happens, right, out in the world, and you don't have treats with you, if you have taught and you have practiced and you have reinforced, you're still going to get the behavior. Because every other time they got a reinforcer for it. And so they're gonna do the behavior because they have an expectation. And if you don't have food on you, then obviously you reinforce them with, praise or play or, affection or whatever. But it's an investment in future behavior. And that's an important thing to remember. Like I said, carrying treats just means that you're prepared to teach rather than being prepared to punish. And another important point, because whenever I ask somebody, hey, can your dog have a cookie? They're like, well, he has to work for it, And that's fine. But I think that comes from, again, our work ethic in our society and the meritocracy, right? And that nothing is free. Well, because they're a highly sensitive, nonverbal preschooler that will never leave home, you can give them treats just because they're cute and you love them. And it's fine. And they don't always have to do a behavior. Food is love, Food is love. We feed people to show our love, and we feed our dogs to show our love. We share our food with them. We give them those food reinforcers, and everybody's happy. There doesn't have to be a bunch of stress and conflict. It can just be, fun times for everybody. If you're doing dog training and it is not fun and it is not easy for you and your dog, stop and call me, because it should be fun. It should be easy. Everyone should want to participate. Right? And Dogs can have good stuff just because we love them, and it will not spoil them. It is almost impossible to spoil a dog with love, affection, and attention. It's very easy to spoil a dog by punishing them and bullying them and losing their trust and not having good communication. So don't worry about spoiling your dog. You don't want to make them fat, but other than that, please feel free to give your dog food because they're a good dog and you love them, and they don't have to work for everything. All right, so that is all the material that I wanted to cover. Go ahead and change the slide for me. Okay, Mary from MCAT is here, and I really thank her for coming out in this blizzard. MCAT will be broadcasting this presentation in the future, several weeks from now, so keep an eye out for that. Okay, so just to sum up, like I said at the beginning, my goal here is to get you to see your dog differently and understand their behavior differently. And so when you look at your dog, I want you to see, if you know it, say it along with me, highly sensitive, nonverbal, preschooler. Yes, that if you take one thing away with you today, when you look at your dog, I don't care how old they are or how big they are, they're a highly sensitive, nonverbal preschooler, and that is where all of our relationship with them needs to be focused. Like we talked about, the alpha dog style and the authoritarian parent style are both reactive philosophies based in conflict, force, and fear. And that is what they have in common. And the gentle teacher is proactive and highlights cooperation rather than conflict, being on the same team. It is about the dog wanting to do things voluntarily rather than being forced or coerced. And of course, it is about trust, which is trust and communication. So I'm sure that you guys have, just like everybody else, seen dog trainers on TV and read stuff on the internet, and it's really hard to know who to trust and what to believe. Misinformation is everywhere, and I'm gonna just ask you from the bottom of my heart to do your best to stop the spread of misinformation about dog behavior and how to deal with it. If you don't know, ask a pro. Take a business card, call me anytime if you have a question. And I'm just gonna tell you, just as a public service announcement, anybody who tells you to say no or bad, that's not useful advice. Housebreaking is not accomplished by shoving puppies' faces in their excrement. So, when you hear those kinds of advice, I just want you to stop and think, is this something that's gonna improve my relationship with my dog, or is it gonna damage my relationship with my dog? And that's how you know sort of what to believe. And if you're not sure, like I said, call me or someone like me, because misinformation is everywhere, and I'd really like to stop the spread of it. And I mean everywhere. I had a client whose veterinarian told her, based in the alpha dog dominance theory, to never let her dog win at tug of war, because then the dog will be dominant and think it's the boss. And mind you, it's a terrier puppy that's like yay big. And her veterinarian told her this. So when I say it's everywhere, I mean it's everywhere. And I'm on a mission to stop the spread of misinformation and share with people useful ideas about how to have a better relationship with their dog, get their needs met, have the dog get their needs met, lack of conflict, lack of stress, happy, on the same team, right? Just love and affection and working together. Thank you guys so much again for coming out. Thank you, MCAT. Lauren, I've got handouts in the computer bag. There was my friend Margaret is here. Hi, Margaret. And I take care of her dog sometimes. And I noticed the other day she had a copy of the Atlantic Monthly on her table with an article called "Your Dog Feels No Shame." And of course, I was very curious. And it's a wonderful little article about the myth of canine guilt, right? Because you see all the dog shaming memes, right? About how they know they were bad and things like this. And the reality is that actually they're responding to our emotional state. So if there's a mess on the floor, if your stuff's been destroyed, and you come in and you go, "Yay, hi, it's great to see you, puppy," that dog's not gonna look guilty even though that there's destruction everywhere, because they're responding to our emotional state when we see what they have done. But they don't feel guilt because that's an abstract concept, and would mean that they also understood morals and right and wrong and possession of objects, and all these sort of abstract things that they just can't comprehend. So it's a great little article. Enjoy it, share it as you like. Margaret made those copies for me, so thank you for that. And I right now am doing training on a donation basis. So one reason for that is that I am trying to accumulate a certain number of hours dealing with specific behavior problems for an advanced certification, but also the main reason is because I don't want money to be the reason why people aren't getting help with their dog problems. Because nobody is happy, the dog's not happy, and the person's not happy. And I want to help. I want to fix that. And if money is an issue, then we'll find some other way. You know, pay what you can, pay what you will, barter, whatever. But if you're having behavior problems, relationship problems, communication problems with your dog, please give me or someone like me a call, and we will get together and work that out. So let's look at our little whiteboard exercise one more time here. Okay, so do we still think that this, so if we were thinking alpha dog, right, we would say that the jumping up stuff would be like an attempt to dominate, right? That's how people would see that, right? And then the parental type of idea would be that they have bad manners, that they're rude, right?
I just thought she was happy.
Okay, over aroused.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't look at like when she was like you mentioned what your reaction to stuff.
Yeah.
When I would walk in and have to drive over, be off the side of on both sides of the door, I never yell at her.
Good.
This lady.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I talk to. I mean, I'm
Sure.
not a mean person. I mean,
Sure.
I never punished her.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's good because,
That's not, I mean,
yeah.
she didn't need to.
Right.
I mean,
That's a good
I mean,
instinct.
you know, all of the drapes are all off the
Yes.
walls, but,
Yes.
You know, the blinds are gone.
Yes.
But I didn't look at it like, I mean,
Right.
I don't want her to do it, but I didn't scold her.
Right.
I
Good.
mean, I didn't like
Good.
take it down. Did you do that?
Good.
You know?
Yes.
That's
Right.
not who I am.
Good. I'm glad. That's good. That's a good instinct, and I'm glad that you went with it. And I do think that you're correct. I think a lot of that behavior is caused by separation anxiety based on the little bit of history that you've given me. And briefly, what we would do for separation anxiety is that we do what's called desensitizing and counter conditioning. So she thinks that when you leave and she thinks that when she's alone, that's bad. So we're going to teach her, and she also thinks that you may never come back, and that she may have just been abandoned. And those are horrible things to think, you know, especially when you're in a new and unfamiliar environment. And so all we really do with that problem is we very, very carefully, very, very slowly teach them that A, when you leave, you're coming back, and we do that by just having very short absences, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and then you come right back in like everything is just normal. And we desensitize those cues that mean we're leaving, like we pick up our keys and then we don't leave, we put on our shoes and take them off, put on our coat and take it off, and we offer them delicious food reinforcers when we do leave, and then we come right back. So we're teaching them that good things happen when you leave, that you are coming back, and that if they have calm behavior, they're going to be reinforced for that. And what did we talk about that little formula, right? Trust equals consistency over time. And so that's really important in treating separation anxiety, is that we need to break down all those little cues that they're reacting to and teach them gently and carefully that none of these things are bad. And good things will happen if you are calm, and mom and dad will come back, and sometimes they'll come back in 30 seconds, and sometimes they'll come back in 30 minutes, but they're always coming back.
So give her a treat before we leave.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. I like to use interactive food toys like stuffing a Kong, or like the type of ball that holds kibble in it and things like that. Now, dogs with severe separation anxiety are not going to eat stuff like that when they're emotionally aroused because they're alone. So it's a little further down in the process. And also, I always want to make sure people realize that if you are using something like a Kong for when you leave, with a separation anxiety dog, you want to give them that treat when you're home sometimes as well, because otherwise it becomes a predictor of you leaving, and it has significance then. So yes, give them something delightful when you leave, but also give them that sometimes when you're home. And again, this isn't just you have to go to work all day, so you leave for 8 hours and deal with the consequences. You have to actually teach and practice this, in an artificial situation where you're not really going to leave. And we just try to mix it all up with all those cues. Like I said, shoes, coat, keys, purse, different things like that. Disassociate them from you leaving. and then counter condition to you leaving, so that you leaving isn't a bad thing, it's a good thing, because you're coming back and food treats are happening. Does that make sense? So that's like the quick and dirty of how we work with separation anxiety. But as I said, I encourage you to give me a call. I would love to get together with you and drill down a little bit and come up with a structured training plan for you guys to work on that problem. But you're doing great so far,
I got a question regarding my wife. She's real soft with the animals. They don't get near me. When I tell them no, they know that's the law. They'll walk up to my wife's plate and literally steal her food. They won't come near my plate because they know they'll get smacked. In the sense, I make it clear. I point my finger and I said, don't go near my plate. I know they don't understand me. But they don't come near it. But with my wife, Carol, they love her. They'll literally try to take her food, and I'm trying to tell Carol, you can't allow them.
So it's kind of about balance, isn't it? And also maybe management, so that we would.
You know what, sometimes they're eating and like I talk with my hands, so like say I have a half sandwich and I'll just
sure.
like whatever. And if I stop, like moving my hands, they'll just come up and just take it right out of my hand.
Sure.
I told her, you can't permit that. You can't. That's very bad.
Yeah, but you don't want to punish it necessarily either. You just kind of want to prevent it. Like I said, with management, like, put them on the other side of a baby gate when you're eating, and then it won't be an issue, And also, use that opportunity to let them know that even if they are not being obnoxious and up in your face, especially if they're not doing those things and they're just waiting patiently and calmly, you will share some food with them, okay? So they want the food, right? And if you can teach them the best way for them to get that food, they're going to do it, if that makes sense. So let's talk more.
Because when I'm eating, they'll sit there and be patient. And I told Carol, I said, you need to somehow reinforce the fact when I place off limits until I say so. But,
Well, so like I said, we like to think about do rather than don't, right? And so what we want them to do is to wait calmly and quietly while you're eating your food. And so that's what we're going to reinforce for. We're not going to wait for the behavior to happen so that we can punish it or correct it. We're going to prevent it, and we're going to teach what's wanted instead, and we're going to give them a good reason to do that instead. So thank you for participating. And let's revisit Courtney and Wally here. So alpha dog dominant says your dog's not coming back because they don't respect you as the pack leader. Parent-child says that they have poor manners and they're being willfully disobedient. And what a gentle teacher does in that situation is, again, breaks it down into little pieces and makes it so easy they can't get it wrong. So if I'm teaching recall, first of all, I'm going to do it in a controlled environment without distractions. And the way that I'm going to make it so easy and so fun is that, first of all, I'm not even going to ask for it. Every time the dog comes to me, I'm going to get excited and give them something delicious. So that default coming to me is going to be good news, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and add that cue of using their name and or that recall command. And I'm going to reinforce for even turning their head and looking in my direction at the beginning, because that's the beginning of the behavior. We don't want to wait until the behavior is complete and perfect to reinforce it. We want to teach it in little pieces and reinforce those little pieces. So we want their attention. If they're turning their head and looking at us, that's a great start, and we're going to reinforce that. Once that's happening consistently, then we're going to wait until they start moving their body towards us even a little bit, and we're going to reinforce that. And then we're going to hold off and reinforce when they come a little closer, and so on and so on. And then once we have them completing the behavior and being reinforced for it, giving us their attention and coming to us, and we're reinforcing them, then we're going to start reinforcing for coming to us quickly. So that if they saunter along, they may get a good dog or a throw the ball or whatever. But if they haul it and get to as fast as they can, then they get like 4 or 5 treats. And so you can vary your amount of treats and your value of treats, like meat versus crunchy treats, things like this. And so that's kind of how we reteach the recall. We don't assume that they know and are being willfully disobedient. We assume that there are reasons they can't comply, such as being distracted, such as being in an unfamiliar environment. Because dogs don't generalize. Just because they know a behavior at home, if you take them somewhere else and ask them to do it, they're going to look at you like you have 2 heads, because if you change one thing, you changed everything. So if you're in a different situation or distractions are being added or things like that, then you have to make it easy again. You have to do whatever you can to reteach and make it easy and fun, so that they then have confidence in this new situation and in their ability to resist distractions, because you're going to be the best bet. Does that make sense?
So the problem that's been happening is, he used to come back to me and I would call him back many, many times on hikes and give him treats. you know, he'd come back to me hundreds of times, and then he stopped doing this, and when he does this, he won't respond to treats. He'll get near me, I'll hold out a treat, and he'll just bark at me.
Okay.
And not come closer.
Okay.
And it's just like something switches in him, and he just
Sure.
won't do it.
So you're going to want to start over, and you're going to want to start teaching your recall in your living room and in your house from a short distance where they can see you. And then the next step for teaching it in the house is a short distance where they can't see you. And then you take it into the backyard and you make the space a little bigger and things like this, and maybe there's a distraction or two. And once you have it locked down in the house and locked down in the yard, then you practice in the driveway, and then you practice on the sidewalk in front of your house. And then you go to one of the little parks with an enclosure and practice there. Do you see what I'm saying? You reteach it, you start over at the beginning, they can't get it wrong, they're not a bad dog. We're just gonna, increase that level of trust and communication and reinforcement and make it so, so easy and so, so fun that they want to participate and that they can't get it wrong. And again, I personally am like a show me, don't tell me kind of person, and I would love to get together with you and actually show you what that looks like. But hopefully I've given you a little bit of hope about the ability to solve that problem and maybe some ideas about where to start. Okay, awesome. And then let's talk about your pup with the destruction. So, not knowing your pup, never having assessed their behavior or observed them in the home, I can guess, reasons why these things happen. First of all, dogs don't understand why we want them to do and not do certain things because they don't possess language or the ability to comprehend abstract concepts. So that's a problem because you can explain to a kid why you should or shouldn't do something and they're going to get it, even a 4-year-old. A lot of the time. Dogs have no ability to comprehend why we want them to not do things, especially things that are dog things, like barking and digging and chewing. And when we punish them and get mad at them, they don't know why we don't want them to do it, and they don't know why we're mad at them, right? So destruction, dissection is a natural dog behavior, of course. The pack hunts, they bring down the prey, and then cooperatively the pack dissects it and eats together. And so that's where a lot of that comes from. The other two reasons why stuff gets destroyed are separation anxiety, like these guys are dealing with. And I see a lot of destruction of personal items that smell like the people that are destroyed when the people are gone. And I think that it's kind of a self-soothing kind of behavior to get something that smells like mom or dad and get real close to it and taste it and bite it and, if you chew on it and rip it apart, oops, oops, right? And then separation, that's a separation anxiety reason. And then, like you said, your dog may need a little bit more physical exercise. And if you don't have the time and energy to do more physical exercise, a great little hack is you can tire them out and keep them occupied with mental exercise. If you give them problems to solve, like those interactive food toys like I was talking about with Carol, that makes them tired too. Just like, if you sit in your seat and study for 2 hours and you haven't moved a muscle, you're still tired when you're done. Same. If you can get their brain really clicking, A, it gives them something else to do, right? Because we want them to do, not do, right? And B, it burns off some of that energy and it keeps them focused. So I definitely recommend that. Also, some management solutions. Like we don't want to sort of confine our dog in a room with the door closed because that's really hard on them. But in a room with a baby gate is totally fine. Especially if it's during the day, because dogs are not diurnal or nocturnal like humans or cats or whatever. They're actually crepuscular, so they're active, and this is sort of from being wild animals, and canids and ungulates are still in the wild are crepuscular. They're active at dawn and they're active at dusk. And so what that means is that, like, if they're not a working dog, if they're not going to go, herd cattle all day, for the most part, domestic dogs sleep all day while we're gone. They're active for 2 or 3 or 4 hours in the morning and 2 or 3 or 4 hours in the evening, and the rest of the time they sleep, they rest, because that's how nature made them. So I tell people don't worry about leaving your dog, in, a small room with a baby gate or whatever, because it's going to be their den and they're going to curl up and go to sleep in there 9 times out of 10, especially if you give them something like a stuffed Kong to work on while they're in there. So definitely look at management, right? Preventing those behaviors by making sure she doesn't have access to those things that you don't want destroyed, right? And then if you're home and she's like interacting with those objects and not being destructive, teach her what to do. Like if she's a furniture destroyer, have her get up on a piece of furniture and lay and chill and give her some reinforcers. You know, this is what this is for. This is what I want you to do with this object. It's great for you to get up here and lay down and be calm and quiet, and I'll give you this food. So it's not that you can't touch the thing, it's that you can't destroy the thing. Yeah? So when we're home, we watch them, right? And we don't correct them, we don't punish, we just help them do something different. And when we're not home and we can't watch them, rather than counting on, you know, training them to never do certain things, we just make it impossible for them to do certain things by using management, if that makes sense. And again, you know, show me, don't tell me. I would be very happy to get together with you and, you know, do an assessment in your home and give you some more concrete ideas for your particular situation about how to resolve that. Where are we at here? 3:15. Okay. If anybody has any questions, we can do a quick little Q&A for about 5 or 10 minutes if anybody has anything that I didn't cover. Okay, go, Claire.
To this couple here, we had a dog that was like that. I mean, if you were sitting in front of the TV and you had to use the restroom, we automatically picked up the remote control because when we came back, the remote would be gone. I mean, it was really bad. And
Perfect
the dog
example of
we had
management.
was a terror. So finally, we put baby locks on all of the cupboards because you could be sitting on the phone. The next thing you know, our dogs were bringing out the full bag of potatoes on the living room floor.
One dog, a beagle.
And, you know, it was funny to watch. I mean, they would go get one, and then the other dog would come and get another one. They'd bring, finally the full bag was on the living room floor. They were having a blast. I told Daniel I'd buy another bag of potatoes just to let them be happy. But then it got to the point, the dog would get into my China buffet, was taking out, all of a sudden I'd look up and oh my gosh, here they have a porcelain cup and they're running around the living room. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I mean, I'm praying. You know, because they'll break it and I'm thinking glass is going to get in their mouth and everything. So we went through, I mean, oh my gosh, this was the worst dog and the best dog. I mean, I had scars, it would bite me. I mean, I'd go to pick it up and all of a sudden it's like, it would just bite. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I mean, ouch, you know. But you know, this dog, like I said, we did little things, like we put the locks. I mean, we never had any kids we had to worry about, you know, getting into the cupboards. And also on the drawers, it learned how to open up the oven drawer, and it would take out the pots and pans in the bottom of the oven. Thank God those didn't break. I mean, we didn't care. But it was, oh my gosh, it was just the worst, but very, very sweet.
Yeah, and see, this is a great example of an individual dog's personality and behavior because that's very specific. And I've known a few dogs, you know, that are object collectors like that. For whatever reason, greyhounds are big on collecting things and taking them to their bed or their lair or whatever. So I have seen that to a certain extent. And you know, some of those behaviors are self-reinforcing. The dog does it because it's fun, right? Like, yeah, exactly. They get bored, which is why I recommend the interactive food toys, which is why I recommend, you know, and we're busy, we have jobs and we have kids and all of these things, but I do recommend to take however much time you reasonably think that you can spare to just be dog time. You know, and make sure that your dog's needs are met sort of for, you know, affection and play and praise and communication and interaction. And then you can say, okay, dog time is over. You need to go lie down and relax and I'm going to go do people things now. But I really do think designated dog time is an important part of the relationship. Sometimes dogs get lost in the shuffle like a piece of furniture. And you know, they do have those personalities and those individual quirks and traits. And it's really important to keep getting to know your dog better and better and better, and what those little quirks are and what maybe some of their reactions to things might be. Because all that just makes a clearer and clearer picture for you, making your dog's behavior more predictable, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's a fantastic example. And you know, there's an endless amount of funny, quirky little behaviors that they will do. And you know, sometimes it may not be something that we really like want them to do, but we can't help it, so we laugh and smile. And that is a reinforcer, and it does encourage them to do it again. But I mean, it's impossible sometimes to not laugh and smile when they do goofy stuff like that, which is, again, like I say, why we fall back on management so often, because dogs don't understand the idea of nothing or not or don't, right? That is an abstract concept. So the only thing that they get is what is and what to do, right? Does that make sense? And so other than that, it's pretty fruitless to try and get them to just never do a certain behavior. You know, it's just a question of how you respond to it, how you manage it, you know, whether you reinforce it or not, and different things like that. But again, they know you're the boss, you are the boss, you only have to be a little bit smarter than the dog, and employ some strategies, hopefully some of the things that we've talked about here today. And the APDT, the Association of Professional Dog Trainers, is the professional organization that I belong to, and they have a wonderful website with lots of great articles with reliable, up-to-date advice about how to deal with certain behavioral problems. There's also the American Society of Veterinary Behaviorists and the Humane Society. Both have position papers on their websites about humane hierarchy, that is sort of debunking the dominance myth, as well as constructive ideas for appropriately solving behavior problems. So APDT and what did I say, ASVAB, Society of Veterinary Behaviorists, and the Humane Society, those are all very reliable sources for information that I would encourage you to look to if you have questions or want to know more. Do your part to stop the spread of misinformation. Share my information with anybody that you wish. And if you didn't get a business card, I've got a little stack here. Come on up and visit me and grab a business card on your way out. And since we didn't have a humongous crowd, everybody can have a refrigerator magnet. So I think that is what I have to share. Again, thank you for coming out in the blizzard. Thank you, Mary from MCAT. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Darren. And good luck. And happy dogging. Happy dogging.